I want to welcome everyone. We've done a series of shows and here on WLX and WDXE. We appreciate the radio station for airing these broadcasts. Chris and I have sat down. We've had a cordial conversation. The name of the show, we just titled it On the Contrary because we knew we weren't going to agree walking in here. We didn't come in here to necessarily agree on every topic, and we found common ground in some things, and some things we just have to agree to disagree. And I appreciate the conversation. But we've come through the election, and we
Thank
we
goodness.
now we see. Yeah, I agree. Thanks goodness, we're glad that it's been a hard election, no doubt. It's been a crazy. See, yeah,
Some more than others.
right, right. So I'm hoping that I'm hoping that you're doing well, and I have something for you here. If you can't see us because you're watching radio, I've got some Kleenex for you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I needed
I
those the
wanted to
other
make
night.
sure. Did you need those?
Those and a Jack Daniels.
Okay.
I would have been fine.
Well, we watched the results as they were coming in, and of course, I was at a watch party here in town, and I started seeing that Trump was doing good in a lot of areas, and just right out of the gate, I'll tell you that Virginia, I was thinking he was going to get Virginia at first, and there while we were at the watch party, I was telling people, and we were talking about it, and if he would have taken Virginia, I was like, you can go ahead and turn it off. If he carries Virginia on this
Yeah.
2024 election, yeah, it's going
Oh,
to be a home run.
it was a bad night all the way around. And I was kind of like you watching first the exit polls came out around 4 o'clock and they didn't look good. The people were very sour on the economy. They were very sour just on about the total state of affairs in America right now. And
Right.
usually that doesn't bode well for the person that's in office. And of course, she is the vice president. And once the actual results started rolling in, they definitely weren't good. Virginia was close. You even saw states like New Jersey and New York were a lot closer than they would have been.
Hmm.
When you start seeing traditionally blue states not being called when the polls close,
Sure.
you know something's in the water. And it was
Good. And I agree that we'd like to see a solid win on either
yes.
side. Whoever's going to win, let them win. And
I'm proud of that. Of course, I didn't vote for the guy and don't really care for him, but
run again in 4 years.
he probably will. Don't know we had certainty in who won, and it
Yeah.
wasn't close. So
Win the popular vote.
he won popular
What
vote.
do you think about that?
Surprising, but again, I think it's probably a good thing. I think people in this country need to have a president that a majority of the country support. Republicans, unfortunately, the last 20 to 30 years have only won the popular vote one time
Mhm.
outside of this, and that was George Bush in, I believe, 2004.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really happened that often on the Republican side. So I think he has a mandate to fulfill his agenda. We'll see what he does. I think Joe Biden and the Democrats have done exactly what I said they would do if we did get beat. He would be invited to the White House, and a peaceful transfer of power would
Sure.
ensue. I think President Biden said it well last week after that. You can only love your country when you win, and you can only love your neighbor when you agree. And I hope that we see that now more than we did. And, we can start to heal and, maybe unite this country more than we have been.
I think Joe Biden has been thrown under the bus by the Democrat Party. In my opinion, I think that, and every people there probably, I'm not going to speak for every Republican out there, but from what I've seen with the way Joe Biden's been treated
Yeah.
during this entire year, it's been difficult. Now that the whole process is his fault,
Yeah.
and he's taking the blame, and he's never going to win a popularity contest with Republicans. But Chris, to be honest, I believe Joe Biden they're going to destroy any type of legacy he may think he has. I believe they're going to try to make him the worst president in the United States modern history. I believe that's what they're going to try to label him as.
Well,
This is over.
I don't think that'll be the case. I think his legacy is going to be what it is. He came into office during the pandemic and ended it for all intents and purposes. The economy's back to being the strongest in the world. Inflation is at 2.1% now. Unemployment's 4%. We're able to pass bipartisan legislation, the CHIPS and Science Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, things to do with our veterans. So And he's done it by being a decent and good person. So I don't think you can erase those. I'm sure Trump's going to try to reverse as many policies as he can, just like he did with Obama. But at the end of the day, I think he was treated bad by the party,
I do. I think he would.
by Nancy Pelosi and a lot of others. And
Oh, he's still being treated pretty bad. They're now saying Joe Biden
the,
step aside
yeah,
and let Harris be president.
stupid.
I cannot believe what I'm hearing, Chris.
Well, that would be not only unfair to him, it would be unfair to her. Because she didn't earn to be president. If she won, she would be president. Resigning for him to resign and allow her to become that'd be a slap in her face, I think.
But I think
It's
if
ridiculous.
that happens, I think it's going
It's
to be
not
very
going to
bad
happen.
for the party.
Joe Biden will
Um,
not resign. He'll finish out his term, and I hope the people like Pelosi and Schumer and all of them that said that Biden needed to step aside because Democrats, any Democrat besides Biden would win easily against Trump. I hope that they hold themselves accountable for what they did because I don't see how we could have done any worse. A Democrat hasn't lost the popular vote in 20 years. We got demolished in the swing states. We lost, even more Senate seats than I thought we would.
yeah,
You had Bob Casey in Pennsylvania,
yeah, he's done.
household name.
Yeah.
His dad was governor for years. He's been a senator for
Would
20
you
years.
would you I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you categorize him as moderate?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing
He's a good senator.
is we've seen moderates, and this is my opinion, only opinion. This is all opinion on this show, pretty much, anyways.
Yeah.
We pull out some facts and talk a lot of opinion, having a conversation. But in my opinion, the far left has absolutely taken over the Democrat Party, and I've been saying that since you and I started
Yeah.
this show, and it's more obvious to me in this election cycle, and this is why I believe there was such a turnout on the vote for Donald Trump.
I mean, I agree. The left is trying to probably they're going to see this as an opportunity to try to take over the party, and I think that's going to be a big mistake because if you look at the results, and I've looked at them every which way you can, I don't think anybody can disagree with the fact that it was the left policies that killed the party, whether it was on, you know, transmit men and women's sports, it was on immigration, things like that,
Right.
that party started to adopt first term when Donald Trump was in office.
Hmm.
Even the big killer last week, Democrats lost Latinos.
Yep.
We lost Latinos. He won 40 something percent of the vote for Latinos. Those are George Bush kind of numbers.
Yeah.
He put together a coalition that was a winning coalition. If Democrats don't get their act together, we're going to be in the minority for years to come.
I believe this. I believe that Trump's election of being president now, his second term, this is unprecedented. What we've seen has not happened like this before. Literally, Chris, in my opinion, you're seeing two administrations that were back to back.
Yeah.
And so they come up, and so Trump's not a new figure as
Right.
far as anything goes. Biden was not new even when he ran against Trump the first time. He served, of course, 8 years as vice president, as well, no, but then come back and ran as president. And then you had 2020. So you had two administrations, the 2016 through 2020, 2020 through 2024 administrations back to back. And so people had a chance to look at both. It really and truly, neither one could come to the table and say what they were going to do differently.
Right.
And I think even Harris and Biden took a lot of heat on that because, it was kind of even a slip of the tongue. You would hear them say, well, on day one, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you're on day 2000 or whatever.
It's tough.
You've been in there a while.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't come in and say you were going to change your policies in January when you're already, in the leadership there.
Yeah. I mean, it's always tough, especially for a vice president to try to separate themselves from an administration that they're a part of.
Mhm.
Vice presidents have traditionally not done well when they've ran.
Right.
Joe Biden is one of the first vice presidents, and of course, you had the Trump administration in between then.
Mhm.
The last one to run was Al Gore, and we saw how that went. He came
Yep.
close but didn't get it. But yeah, I mean, it was a failure across the board. I'm very disappointed because I think that there was a chance to win, but the party just failed at all levels. And like we talked about for several weeks, if Democrats continue to get killed in rural areas like ours, 85-15, there's no chance to win. You can't blow that many votes and expect big cities to bail you out.
Right.
And you're getting killed in these rural areas like where we live and, all across southern Tennessee and northern Alabama. And not just on the national level, but the seats at the local level,
Right.
Democrats, they're not even competing.
Right.
So we're going to have to get our act together, and I hope to God that we see that moving to the center is the only option. Because if we continue to move to the left, I mean, it will just get
Well,
demolished.
I'm a Republican, of course. We're coming in and doing the show, and I'm a conservative Republican. But I'll say this as a Republican, I think it would benefit the country if the Democrat Party moved to the center.
Yeah,
You know, we're having some really heated political debate and arguments in our Senate and on the House and with executive orders pushing things to the left. As a citizen, I would like to see the party come back to the center. I will tell you this: I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I just being truthful as I can be, and watching this from a distance, and then going to vote, and seeing the election process, seeing what I see on social media. I don't see it. I've not seen the Democrats come out this week and even say what you've said right here in this room. They've not said we lost because of our policy. And you remember one of the conversations you and I had, Chris, was how can you vote for Donald Trump? How do you vote for Harris? We had this thing about the
yeah,
personality, and I told you, I said it's the policies
yeah.
is what we go for. But I've not seen Democrats come out this week and say, you know what, our policies are wrong. I've not seen that. They've come out and slammed Harris. It was Biden's fault. He should have dropped out of the race. But I was hoping that they were going to come out and go, you know what, I believe we've messed up. And
You have
I'm
to
not
look
seeing
at
it.
yourself in the mirror and admit something went wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, my God, when you get blown out that bad,
Yeah.
it's not one or two things. You need to take a comprehensive look at what you've done. And, I'm the first one to admit, you asked me about the trans issue, and I told you that's just not something I'm comfortable with,
Transgender in women's sports. Yeah.
and I told you that's not something that I'm
Sure.
comfortable with. That's a disagreement that I have. And I read an article. Of course, everybody's talking through unnamed sources right now on the Democratic side,
Yeah.
blaming everybody. And
Right.
one of the things was that somebody that is close to the president said that they would have responded and came out against that ad that Trump was running about Harris is for they, them, and Donald Trump is for you.
I saw the ad.
They think that was the killer because it played so many times in these swing states, and she just didn't respond to it. She didn't come out and say, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. She just let it stand there. And they said the president would have probably came out and said, I'm against this. And that was a blown opportunity. She just let the attack go unanswered. And that, along with immigration and inflation, were the three big issues I believe, and inflation is at 2.1% now, but prices are still too high, and Trump's not going to lower the prices. All we can hope is that the economy continues to roll and wages go up more than what prices are going up. But there's no magic wand anybody can do to lower prices. I can't ever remember outside of having a recession where prices drop.
Yeah,
So,
the prices usually don't come down.
no,
You don't see prices go down. What you have to work toward now, in my opinion, is you want to see wage earners. I believe our wages are lower than they should be, and I'm not a proponent for raising a minimum wage whatsoever. I
yeah,
don't think that's a good idea. I think the market should dictate the wage, but I'm hoping the market does come back, and then wage earners go up.
yeah,
Household income would go up in this country. Um, I think, and I'm gonna have to talk about something that I mean, you brought it up, and I'm glad you did. But the transgender in women's sports issue, I just think is a hot button. And it's a hot button for me. We talked on one of the shows, and if folks are listening, Chris and I, we've talked about a lot of different topics, and
yeah,
we've not sugarcoated it. I mean, it's not been scripted. You didn't know what we were going to talk about. I didn't know we were going to
right.
talk about coming in here tonight. You and I've not even had a conversation since last Monday. But
I've been to
um,
therapy.
you've been laying on the couch letting the doctor solve your problems.
Yeah,
Um, but Joe Biden did two executive orders, and I even sent them to you. And I said, "Look, they did," and it was actually pushing for males to be in women's sports. And I mean, you can't dodge that one. I mean, Joe Biden's got to own that one, and I think that one it was well known. Um, and I feel like, honestly, I feel like a lot of people who vote Democrat or are liberal minded, they didn't even know that that was out there. It
yeah.
was like they didn't weren't even aware of that.
It's not top of mind on most Democrats.
Yeah,
I think that was something the fringe of the party pushed. I don't think Joe Biden really cared about it. Joe Biden was focused on ending COVID, getting the economy restarted, and you have this slew of executive orders your staff puts on day one, and Trump will have the same thing.
sure.
That was not something Joe Biden cared about or even Kamala Harris, but the party got branded with that. And, you know, I'm kind of like you. I don't think most of the people in my party knew about it. I don't think we cared about it. And I don't think we agree with it. You know, if you look at opinion polls that have been done over the last couple of years, a majority of Democrats don't support that.
Sure.
It's about a 65% nationwide. People say no, man shouldn't be competing in women's sports. And we just let the fringe of the party push that. And we got labeled with it and it killed us.
Well, but even we talked about here, and I told you, 26 states sued the Biden administration over that.
Yeah.
More than half of the states
Yeah.
literally went into a lawsuit, and that's active lawsuit right now.
Yeah.
We're going to see all this squashed. I mean, Trump's fixing to he's going to overturn that executive order. I'm glad. I mean, I think there's a lot of things, but I see Joe Biden made some mistakes that really cost him. I think he's going to be the punching bag. There's no doubt about it.
Try. Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to see him with a great legacy. I think they'll label him worse than Jimmy Carter.
Oh, I don't think so. He's loved by the party members. Nancy Pelosi and a lot of them are going to have some answering to do because they pretty much told everybody if you kick Joe Biden off the ticket, any other Democrat can win, whether it was Harris, Gretchen Whitmer, and Gavin Newsom. Pelosi wanted an open primary. She
He wanted Gavin Newsom, in my opinion.
I think that's who she was pushing because she came out this week after the election and said that it kind of made her mad that Biden endorsed Harris right off the bat because she was wanting an open primary.
Mhm.
And who's the governor of California where Nancy's from? It's Gavin Newsom.
Right. Well, they're related.
Yeah. I mean, they misled Democrat voters thinking that if you kick Joe Biden off, it's going to be an easy race against Trump. Well,
Mhm.
Trump, for all of his problems, is probably the strongest Republican to run for president since Reagan because he has the strongest backing of his party than any Republican nominee.
Right.
95% of Republicans back him fully.
Yeah.
You just don't see that in today's age, and I don't know anybody that we could have ran, even Barack Obama. I don't know that he would have won last week's election. Looking at the results,
Right.
because it was just a fundamental letdown all across the board. And when you have inflation as high as it has been, and you have the immigration issue, those are issues that people see every day
Mhm.
and they feel. And it doesn't matter how much you say, what you do. It's not really going to change it. And you see it all over the world. Great Britain has thrown out 2 or 3 prime ministers since the pandemic because of inflation and other issues. You have the German chancellor right now is in trouble. His government's falling apart because of inflation and economic issues. So, it's not a good time to be an incumbent right now.
Well, there's a lot of turmoil in the world, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. We may even be on the brink of a world war before this thing's over with in the Middle East. It's not. I'm hoping this de-escalates, and
I hope so.
I'm hoping that we don't want that at all. But it does have the look of something like that being devastating. You mentioned the polls,
Yeah.
and look. I mean, I have been.
Polls
I
are
have
pretty
wanted-
accurate.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, but all the polls were showing her by 1%.
Well, I mean, there at the end, I saw some that showed him up by a point or two.
Okay, I'll give you an example. You even read the Iowa poll.
Oh, that was way big. That was way off. She needs
Let's
to go
look
out of
at
business.
I can't. Alan Lichtman? Is he the guy that's got
The 13 keys.
The 13 keys. True story.
He needs to change the law.
He's changed the locks. Go to those 13 keys. All right, and I can't even recite them. Honestly, I never even read them until the day after the election.
Yeah.
And I had some time, and I sat down and I started reading his 13 keys. And in my just reading of it, I could see where Trump hit 8 to 9 of those keys. And I don't know how he said Harris was leading in those 13 keys. I believe the way it works is if you had the majority of the keys, you were going to win.
Yeah.
And even through the election, on election day, he's like, Harris is going to win because he got the keys. And I'm going, I don't think so. I don't think she's going to win. But then after the election, I went back and looked at the 13 keys, and I'm like, how could he look at the two administrations and give Harris credit for some of the stuff he did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the 13 keys are wrong. I'm saying his perception of what was happening was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much stock you can put into things like that. Although they have been pretty predictive in the past. I think he'd called the last nine correctly, the 9 presidential races. But overall, the polls were better than they were in 16 and 20. Final poll average, I think, in 20 had Biden up by like 7, and he won by 4. This one was basically 50-50. The averages maybe gave a slight edge to her at the end, but Trump's going to end up winning by about a point and a half on the popular vote. Not even close in the electoral college. So,
Yeah, but on the electoral college, they were showing her winning like
Michigan and
yeah. I mean, they missed it.
Yeah.
I mean, they missed
the
some of
state
these.
polls were less reliable.
And honestly, I was surprised. In my opinion, I was surprised at how wrong they were.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it going, how can you look at the polls? And I have not seen it, but one of my friends was telling me about comedian Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
On Comedy Central. I've not seen it, but he's a highly political guy. He's definitely a liberal. He went off, and I think he may even used some adult only language in his tirade about the polls and how bad they were. I mean, the polls were throwing her up. Everybody was saying she was going to win. I'm looking at the betting markets. People, where they put their money is where, they're not going to lie about the money. That's where they're going to tell the truth. And I seen him way up in the betting markets.
60-40.
And I was like, the betting markets hit it.
Yeah.
But the polls, in my opinion, I look at the polls and I'm like, I think the polls are way off. And I think they were off in 2020. I know everybody agrees they were off in 2016. I don't see how, for me, Chris, I don't know how we could look at the polls the same.
Yeah.
For a decade now, they've not been able to call the election.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to say they've been left leaning.
I wouldn't put much stock into them. Everybody, I mean, it's fun to look at them, but at the end of the day, would I wager anything on most of them? No.
You wager any money on the election?
I ended up did not.
Okay.
Thank God. Because I would have lost the Christmas money, no doubt about that.
Well, there was a guy called the Trump Whale. Have you heard of the Trump Whale?
No.
So on the betting markets, and I didn't wager any money either, just for people that I don't care a thing about. I've been to Las Vegas and didn't even bet a nickel. I'm not a gambler.
Yeah.
I know better. I know my weak points, and I know I'm not that I would be addicted to it. I'm just not good at it. Okay.
Same.
But there's a guy that was a gambler I don't know, he put a bet down, but a whale is like a high rolling gambler when he go to casinos, apparently. But he called it Trump Whale. Put a huge bet down. He won $50 million off this election. And after it was over, he actually, no one knows his name, but he's got a French media that knows who he is.
Yeah.
And they've agreed not to reveal his identity. He said that he did not bet because of who he liked. They did their own independent polling. The guy was really good at putting bets down on this, made $50 million.
Yeah.
He said that he bet because they called people and they asked them, who's your neighbor going to vote for? Think about this kind of polling. And you're going to tell who your neighbor's going to vote for.
Sure.
And usually you're real quick to say that.
Yeah.
And if you agree with them or if you don't, you're going to be quick to say, my neighbor's voting for Biden, my neighbor's voting for Harris or Trump. And that's the way he did the polling. And he said it was overwhelming Trump win. And that's why he put the bet down.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting. I haven't heard that kind of polling, but that is interesting.
We got a question. You want to read it?
Gary asked, in 2020, Biden supposedly got 81 million votes, and in 24, Harris got 67 million. Where did the 14 million go? Well, Gary, the counting, unfortunately, is still going on in states like California. I think Trump's up to about 75 or 76 million right now, and she's around 72, 73. The turnout's going to be basically what it was in 2020 once it's over. I don't think Trump will hit 81 million. Nate Silver right now has him about 78, 79 million, and Harris around 76 million votes. So together, those will come close to what the 2020 turnout was. But Harris underperformed Biden. She's going to underperform him about 5 or 6 million votes. And where those votes were missing are in blue states. I mean, she probably came close to hitting Biden's total marks in those swing states, but the population grew over the last 4 years, and she got a lower percentage. But where the big drop off in the popular vote are states like California, New York, and New Jersey, where you traditionally see Democrats and even Joe Biden run up the score, where it's like 65-35 or even 70-30. Well, New York was within 10 points this time.
But
Big drop off.
this is going to feed into this is going to feed into the narrative of was there election fraud? Was there voter fraud in the election? Um, and also, you see the states that do not have voter ID. She carried every one of those states.
Yeah.
And we need voter ID in this nation. I mean, you have to have ID to buy alcohol. You have to have ID to buy a firearm. You have to have ID for almost everything that goes on. I had power turned on. We're doing a business and in another county, not in this county, but I had the electricity turned on there a couple of weeks ago. I had to have two forms of ID to get the electricity turned on.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem to have ID when you vote, and we need national ID on voter. But the idea that not as many people turned out does feed into the narrative of where did all the votes come in. I will say I did not see a candidate in Harris that Democrats were excited about. You ask them, you could say, "Hey, what are you voting for? Why do you vote?" And they would always go back to Trump.
Right.
And ask on her own policy, she would go back to Trump. She ran on Trump. And when you have somebody that you're not excited about, I think a lot of people voted for her, and I think they voted for her because they were voting against Trump. That's what it was. And when I see Trump, and you and I talked about this, like why did I think Trump was going to win? Republicans were excited about Trump, and also they were voting against Harris.
Oh yeah.
And when you have that chemistry coming in, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I hope we can get past the 2020 election. I'm proud of the way Democrats have acted the last week. We've acknowledged that Trump won. I haven't seen any major Democrats say that there was any kind of voter fraud or anything. The electoral vote this time, Trump's going to end up with 306. Biden ended up with 306. So it was just the reverse. Last time Biden won by 7 million votes. Trump's going to win by 2 or 3. So, you basically have mirror images, even though Biden is going to have a bigger margin in the popular vote than Trump will this time. But, Republicans were concerned last time about voter fraud. You didn't hear any of that this time when you won. Again, I go back to what Biden said. You can't only love this country when you win. And, we have safe and secure elections.
Well, they had a couple of ballots show up late in Pennsylvania in 2020, and they didn't have signatures. And there was other things. There were issues with the 2020 election. I mean, there were. People can say there weren't, but there were issues. Now,
Republican judges looked at it and didn't agree.
No, they've not been able to prove anything in court. And that's what I was fixing to say. You got to be able to lay your case out in court if you want to effectively, prove your case. And they did not do that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You can blame it on whatever. You can blame it on a judge. You can blame it on a prosecutor. You can blame it on bad evidence. Whatever you want to do. But there were a lot of issues in a lot of different states. I'm hoping that those issues are resolved. I know that even Tennessee has clamped down, and people can try to compare 24 to 20. But we have a whole different voting machine right here in this county, and it is a awesome voting machine. I wish it was nationwide.
Yeah.
I really want to, hats off to our election commission here in this county for putting in the voting machines that has a paper tabulator and electronic simultaneously. It's really a secure way to vote.
Tennessee does elections well. I was proud to see it firsthand when I was on the election commission, but all across the state, it's done well. The results are just about instantaneous. Within an hour, you get to find out who won. The vote totals. Whereas California, we're still waiting a week later to see the final results. That's just, I think that's uncalled for.
And we had a lot of that in 2020.
Yeah.
And when you have
a lot different in 20, you had the mail-in. I can see 20 being a little bit delayed because of the amount of mail-in ballots during the pandemic, but there's no excuse now.
No, there's not.
You should know who won.
I think that in Arizona, I could be wrong. I'm not up on this, but I think Arizona is primarily mail-in ballot. It's either Arizona,
probably Arizona,
or Nevada, one or the other.
Yeah,
but that's pretty much all they do is mail-in
does their elections well.
So
for a size that big of a state, and within an hour or two, the final results, they must be doing something right.
Hey, I like this comment from Gary. He put another one up there. Harris called Trump a Nazi. a racist, misogynist, along with several other not nice things. Now she's saying she'll be happy to work with Trump. Well, is she lying when she said all those things?
Well, that's unfortunately part of politics right now is the name calling, and Trump called Democrats the enemy of the people, the enemy within, said we were vermin, scum of the earth, things like that. So I think you can look at both sides using that kind of rhetoric. Hopefully, again, I think if he wants to work with Democrats, I think Democrats are willing to work with him. I think you can see the rhetoric the last week. You don't have Democrats calling him illegitimate. They're saying, if he's willing to play ball on different issues, they will work with him. They'll oppose him when they disagree. But, we've got to come to a point in this country where we have to say, look, enough is enough on the partisanship. We have elections every 4 years. And during that time, after somebody wins, we've got to find common ground on issues that we can come together on and fight on the ones we don't agree on. But issues like immigration, we're going to have to work together. There has to be a solution through Congress. I'm like you, I'm tired of the executive orders because they get reversed every time the opposite party comes in. You've got to have
Call effect.
comprehensive, lasting legislation. And the only way that's going to get done is if both parties come to the table and you have compromise. Both parties, the extremes on the parties don't like to hear that, but that's what makes government work.
Well, I think on the Gary, I'm glad you asked the question because on the comments about Trump being a Nazi, I mean they called the entire party Nazis. You can say a lot of things during a campaign, but to call Trump a Nazi and the media carry it the way they did, we have a left leaning media. And I'm almost wondering if the media, this is going to be probably a radical statement, but I'm just an observer in this process. The media seems like they have hijacked the Democratic Party. They are pushing the party. I watch things like you see The View, and they get so many different.
Oh God.
I mean, it's just you watch this, and they sit in there and go, "Hey, Trump's a Nazi, and the world's going to be over the day he gets. You're going to lose all your rights." Whenever they literally said these things, and I think it played back against the party because the American people are not that ignorant to believe that the day that Donald Trump was elected, they were going to lose their women's rights.
Right.
And so I don't think it played well on there to do that.
I don't think Harris called Trump a Nazi. The thing was his former chief of staff, General Kelly, who had no reason to lie, said he was a fascist, and he praised Hitler and his generals. And Anderson Cooper asked her if she agreed with Kelly's characterization of Trump, that he was a fascist, and she said yes. So you had people that were former Trump employees, former generals in the military that said that characterization of Trump, and she agreed with it. A lot of people agreed with it. It's his behavior that he wants loyalty to him instead of loyalty to the Constitution. I hope he doesn't go down that route. I hope he's a much more stable and laid back president and he takes the job seriously this
Sure.
time.
Well, what do you think that he violated any of the Constitution during the last term, from 2016 to 2020?
Violated the Constitution?
You said you hope he follows the Constitution. Is there a reason? I'm just wondering why you would make that statement. Do you
I
think
think he was an irregular president. I don't think he was a normal guy. I mean, the behavior that he exhibited.
he was definitely irregular? He's an irregular presidential candidate. I will tell you that.
I don't think the guy is. I think the Republican Party could have done a lot better in picking a president, but clearly my advice is not needed. Uh, he's not my kind of guy.
Right.
I told you, I think the president of the United States needs to have a certain kind of character to lead the country.
Mhm.
Donald Trump doesn't have that, but he's the president now. I wish him well because, like I said, when the president does well, the country does well.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to sit here and go relitigate everything. People know Donald Trump for
Yeah.
better or for worse, and they made
You
a
weren't voting
judgment.
for an unknown candidate this
Right.
time, on either side.
Right.
That's why this was a referendum on the Biden administration
Yeah.
because you had both administrations. You couldn't say one was something. I mean, we had 4 years of both, and I think the American people definitely wanted Trump back in office. You talk about Trump being a regular candidate. I think that's used by a lot of Democrats in a negative manner. But name another president, just one. Name another one in another country where you see stores that are selling just merchandise with their name on it. If you drive to East Tennessee,
Yeah.
there are Trump stores. There's like 2 or 3 in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, just touristy areas. And all it is Trump merchandise on the inside.
That's
You might
that's
want
a
to
li
stop by there,
that's
Chris.
just a little extreme to me, that you borderline getting into cultish behavior when you start flying flags and wearing it's just bizarre to me because like you said, I've never seen that with a politician.
Name another one. I mean,
It
you're not going
goes
to find that.
that's just a little bit too much to me. I don't understand that, but it is what it is.
That's Democrats don't have a candidate they're excited
Well, we,
about.
we definitely don't have one where we have to sell shirts and stuff at a stand on the side of the road. I will agree to that. But Biden and Trump are meeting Wednesday at the White House,
Sure.
and we are going to have a transition. And what do you expect some of Trump's first policies to roll out on day one?
Well, so I will tell you, I'm glad some of the appointments that I'm already seeing him make, and I think he's doing some stuff I really like. You're not going to. He already put on his Twitter account. If you want to be Senate Majority Leader, you're going to have to be willing to do appointments during recess. I'm glad. They were held up, and I'm not saying one side does and the other one don't. They do this. They hold each other up. And during his term from 2016 to 2020, they really held him up. And I'm going to touch on something that you keep going back to how free and fair elections and all that. But when he was elected in 2016, Democrats screamed and yelled for years that he was not a fairly elected president. Russian collusion
I agree.
was spoken so much and totally disproved in the end. And they just they tried to crash his entire presidency off of Russian collusion. And you can take that in whichever rabbit hole you want to take it. But they did not say we had a free and fair election. They did not do it. And
I think that rhetoric went too far.
it was for 4 years we heard it.
I never said that he wasn't legitimate. Anybody that ever said that, I said he's the president.
Right.
He
Right.
won. Whether there was outside influence, that's another question. We're always going to have outside influence, whether it be China, Russia, Iran trying to influence their elections. That's another story. But he was
Right.
legitimately elected, and he's legitimately elected this time. I don't think that benefits Democrats to do that.
But you asked me about some of his first moves. Well, he's already making some. And he picked the first female White House chief of staff. What do you think? I mean, that's huge. And just not making hardly any media. No one wants to talk
I
about this
think
thing.
from my perspective, it's a good pick. I
Yeah.
think she's a professional from what I understand, and she seems to be somebody that can keep him kind of on an even keel. It's a lot better than the people he surrounded himself with. As far as his campaign 4 years ago, they really say that she was the one that kept that campaign on the straight and narrow. When he would get off message, she would kind of be the force that said, that would get him back on track.
In
So,
this year, yeah, this campaign.
yeah,
She helped him in 2016, and then she did not help him in 2020 due to helping Ron DeSantis. And she went on the record as saying it was the worst mistake of her life.
yeah.
As far as a career mistake by helping DeSantis and not helping Trump during that time. And so I see that. I think that's a good appointment. He has appointed Tom Homan as, I mean, this guy is something else. If you don't know,
Orders are.
let me tell you, we've gone from Harris to Tom. I mean, there is no comparison. We talking a 180-degree turnaround. I like this guy. He's hated by Democrats. He's hated by the liberal left. If you haven't looked him up, he can handle the press. He can handle politicians. He doesn't care. I mean, he's on record at the RNC of saying Trump asked him if he would come back, if he ran, would he come back? And he said, "I'll come back." And I can't use the exact words here on the radio, but he said, "I'll work for free
Yeah.
if I want to come back," because he's so mad about what he sees going on with our.
Well, I mean, I don't know outside of deportations what they're going to do because right now, immigration border crossings are lower than they were when Trump left because the executive orders that Biden put into place earlier this year.
I disagree with
Migration is totally dried up.
no.
I mean, he may reinstitute remain in Mexico, things like that, but look at the border crossing numbers. They're lower than they were in January
If
2020.
they're so low, why is the Tennessee National Guard going down there this year?
Well, that was before they did.
We'll move though. That's
That was before he did that.
they're not low. It's bad.
Well,
Fentanyl's flowing through this. I mean, go talk to any police officer. Go talk to any. You want to save taxpayer money. You want to save lives in this country. Close the borders down. And one of the rhetorics that Democrats have said over and over and over again is you're going to separate families. That is the most ridiculous statement that Democrats can make because you're talking about people who are breaking the law.
Yeah.
If we have a guy drinking and driving on the street here in Lawrenceburg, and they got kids in the back seat, and the guy gets caught with a DUI, the kids don't go to jail with the parents. Now, I'm going to tell you, deportation is going to be the only answer, and we are going to have deportation of. And they're like, "What do you do to separate the family?" You can deport the entire family. The entire family came here, and then I also hear Democrats say, "Well, they're seeking asylum. If you want asylum, you have to go through a legal point of entry, or you're breaking the law by coming here." And we have to reestablish that border because the fentanyl flow through, the drug cartels, I mean, it's destroying our nation.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but it's going to be interesting to see on the deportation side whether he follows through with that because 4 years ago he really didn't. He said he was going to have big roundups. They didn't really do that. Obama actually deported more than Trump did. So it's going to be interesting to see because if they did do that, there's estimates by economists that said that it would
Well,
tank the economy.
they actually did go to a lot of Tyson food plants, and I know we got some of these places around here, and
Yeah.
the Tyson food plants. They went in and did raids, and they caught them. And you know what? I believe punishing the employers that's working these people. I believe that's the right way.
Oh, I
Uh,
agree with that.
I think they should fine
That's
them.
the incentive to come here.
That's exactly right. That's how you deal with
It's not the head off the snake.
that's right. And they found loopholes around it. These big corporations have found loopholes. They do contractors. So you get a company like Walmart. Well, Walmart will not hire an illegal immigrant, but Walmart will hire a contractor to come in and do their cleaning, do their painting, and so they figured a loophole out.
Yeah.
And you see illegal immigrants are going to be there working. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to judge people when I see them. Not everybody here is illegal.
Sure.
And if you come here legally, that's what I want. We
Yeah.
want people to come here and work and live legally and be a law-abiding citizen.
Sure.
But if you're a lawbreaker, and Biden's administration is in charge of immigration, and I will tell you, I've talked to several police officers. I'm not trying to throw anybody's names out there, but I'm all over the state of Tennessee. I've had a lot of conversations the last few years, and you can do this on your own. Ask any of your sheriff deputies. Ask them if you arrest an illegal immigrant, does ICE come pick them up while they're in a jail? And you know what they say? No, they're not doing it. And that falls back on the presidential administration. All of this, the states cannot enforce immigration laws. They don't have the right.
Yeah.
That's why they can take busloads of illegal immigrants and drive them to different states, and they can just drop them off. They've done it in Athens, Alabama.
Right.
They've done it in Tennessee, and they're entire busloads of people coming from the border, and the states have no control. They don't even have to let the states know they're doing it. And it's been a dirty business from the very beginning. It's not humane. It's inhumane. There's coyotes. There's traffickers. Human trafficking is out of control. The drugs are out of control. Our border's been out of control.
Well, I hope Democrats learn from this border debacle that we've had over the past 4 to 6 years. It started during the 2020 primary when you had 20 Democrats running for the Democratic nomination. I can remember one of the primary debates where the moderator asked, "Is crossing the border a crime? Raise your hand if you think it's a crime." Well, the only one that basically raised their hand was Joe Biden. And they said that he was outdated, basically said he was
Right.
xenophobic.
They did. You're right.
And, he was the most conservative on that.
Yep.
And they pushed the party to the left on immigration
They did.
so much. They had this idea that if you're Latino, well, you must be for people crossing illegally. That is the stupidest idea that I've ever heard. Just because you're Latino doesn't mean you support people crossing the border illegally.
That's right.
And we paid for that last week.
Right.
I mean, nobody in my party thought that Donald Trump would get 40-something% of the Latino vote. Well, he did.
He got more than that on the male Latino.
Yeah. And in places like Michigan, he got even higher than that. He won the Latino vote with
Yep.
60-something%. So I hope the party learns that Latinos care a lot more than just about illegal immigration. We're going to have to start talking to them the way we talk to ordinary voters about the economy and other issues. We're going to have to start talking to white voters instead of just minority voters. We're going to have to start talking to rural voters. The party's going to have to change, and I hope we have a leader, just somebody that I would like to see maybe is Andy Bashir from Kentucky. He's a conservative Democrat. He's won in a red state. I hope he gives it a look in 4 years. Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, I think he's a sharp guy. He's more on the conservative side. Um, I think we're going to have to move back to the center, and we're going to have a moderating voice, kind of like Bill Clinton was in the '90s, that drew the party back from being the left leaning it was when Michael Dukakis ran.
Mhm.
Because it's shown time and time again, people do not want a far right administration. They don't want a far left administration. And last week, it was a repudiation on the far left.
I agree. Well, if you were to look at election maps from 30 years ago, you would have seen a lot of states that were blue,
Yeah,
and we're sometimes called flyover states. And I'm not trying to delegitimize them, but that's just a term that we get here in Tennessee. We're just a
right.
flyover state. But you would have seen those blue, right? Now, if you look at the map, just pull up the map on any of the websites showing you where people were elected, you're seeing states that used to be blue. It's the best places to live in America
Yeah,
are the flyover states, the
yeah.
best places to be. And they're voting all Republican. When you look at that map, you will see, in my opinion, and this is probably going to be politically incorrect, but I don't care. I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't care. When you look on there, and you're going to see the East Coast and the West Coast is blue.
Yeah.
Democrats, Chris, control areas that have the highest taxes, highest crime, the worst schools. People are leaving; they're fleeing these areas to where Democrats are in control.
Well, I would disagree on the crime and education portion because most educated states are typically your Democratic states, Massachusetts, Delaware, the northeastern states. Crime, we can quibble over on numbers alone. The blue states probably have more crime because of the big cities. But if you look per capita, the red states have just as much crime as those blue states. So I would quibble a little bit with that. But like I said, the Democrats are going to have to get back into these states again and talk to people like they're normal human beings. Just because somebody doesn't have a college degree doesn't mean that their worth is not as much as somebody that does. We've made a mistake just trying to attract, a certain subsection of a group and patchwork all these special interest groups, for lack of a better word, together into an electric. And I mean, it's great when it works, but when it doesn't work,
Democrats
you
lost the
lose.
unions. Democrats lost the union.
Joe Biden he would not have lost the
I
unions last
mean,
week.
that was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Bernie Sanders come out and say, "Hey, we got to get back to we're not a party for the working class anymore."
It's true, but Bernie's version it's not going to fly.
No, Bernie's not. Bernie has done all he's going to do politically. He's just going to finish out where he's at. He's riding his name right now, but he is an old school politician
Yeah.
that's screaming and yelling at this up and coming group of politicians, saying, "You're not going the right direction.
Yeah.
You're going the wrong way." And I agree. I don't know. You and I have not had this exact conversation, but do you see a role reversal to some degree of the Republican Democrat Party, maybe over the last 40 years? But there's been a flip to where it's almost like a
Yes.
role reversal. I believe Tennessee. I believe we're still the same. We're still the same state that we were 30 years ago. I believe we still want traditional marriage. I believe we still are pro life. I believe we were pro life then. And you had a lot of Democrats that used to be pro life. Right? That's over.
Yeah.
There are no pro life Democrats anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't even think the Democratic Party wants
Well,
them in
I
their
think the
party.
country on whole is pro-choice. I think 60 to 70% of the country recognizes they hate abortion. Yeah, I hate abortion, but they realize in those circumstances you have to have that option as a healthcare option for a woman. But where I think the Democrat Party has flipped over the last 20 to 30 years is on economic issues. You see the Republican Party right now is the party of the working people, the people at the lower end and the middle. That's the perception. Whether it's true or not, that's another story. But that's the perception right now in the voters' eyes, and we're perceived as the ones for the college educated, the big business,
Right.
and we're losing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else you need to see. That's not a formula for victory. We've got to start going into these small communities and talking to everyday people like normal human beings, not using words like Latinx
Right.
or LGBTQ, throwing out acronyms, and talking about issues nobody cares about. We've got to talk about, uh, you know, bread and butter issues that affect people every day. And Republicans did it this election.
You mentioned the colleges, and you mentioned this kind of becoming the elites, and that is actually, I agree that that's the Democratic Party's been the party of the elites now. just before we walked into this radio show, I had a conversation with an individual that is in college. I believe they told me they were about 19 years old, and they're writing a paper. I'm actually going to be, talking with them on a side note. I got my phone number just before we came into this show, and this is right here in Lawrence County. I mean, I had the conversation here, right here in this building, and they just happened to be here. And I ran into them. You saw me.
Yeah.
This individual is asking me about tariffs, asking me about economy, wanting to get an opinion, and this person told me that when they started having this conversation with their professor, weren't you talking to faraway land of California?
Yeah.
The professor started attacking Trump, and this individual, a teenager, young adult, told me in this building just 30 minutes ago, I got to be careful what I say, or I'll fail that class.
Mm.
That's a shame that we've
Yeah.
got to this point, I don't think that everybody's that way, but
No.
that tends to be the flagship for the Democrat Party. Now, I know a lot of conservatives. I promise you, they're probably listening to this show right now. A lot of conservatives, and they're concerned about their kids going to a college.
Yeah, and like I said, college is not for everybody. And we've got to, in this Democratic Party, we've got to realize that the trades and working with your hands is just as important as a college degree.
Mhm.
It's needed in this country. Those are the kind of people that are the backbone of the country. Those we love unions. Democrats do.
Yeah.
And those are people, men and women, that work with their hands. They're the people that make this country work. And you can get a certificate and go work making more than you could with a college degree in most cases right now. And you have job security. But we're not talking to those people for the most part. We're talking past them. They're not even real. It's like we're talking two different languages.
Sure.
And Democrats are going to have to get back to the basics on this stuff, or we'll lose again and again and again.
Absolutely. So, do you think Rick Scott is going to become Senate Majority Leader? I do. I think he is.
Probably. I think they're going to give Trump the make a bunch whatever they want, and that appears to be the name that they are pushing right now.
Well, the chief of staff, Miss Wiles, I can't think of her first
Susie.
name. Susie, I'm glad you. Thank you. Um, he actually has worked with Rick Scott in the past, so there's history there. There's a good, and I'm glad to see it. I hope that Trump sets up an administration that can work together. I think he learned a lot from the past. Trump made a lot of mistakes first term. I'm probably the first to tell you that.
Yeah.
And I think he made a lot of mistakes. Some stuff he really did I really liked, but some stuff he just made a mistake. Um, part of that was probably he's arrogant, and I think he come in with some arrogance. Another part of it was he's a businessman. He wasn't a politician. I think he's learned a lot. He's had
Yeah.
8 years of politics now. And I think getting Rick Scott, I'm hoping that he becomes our next Senate Majority Leader. And I think they can all work together if that's the case. Tom Homan, I'm so glad to see him. Um, what about House control? You think GOP is going to take the House?
There's about, I think, 15 seats that are still outstanding. It looks like they may split some of those, but I would say the Republicans are probably going to have a small majority, just about like they've had the last 2 years. So you could only stand to lose 5 or 6 votes on any given. Say you have a 12-seat majority.
Right.
You can only stand to lose 5 of those because if you lose 6, you go below that 218 that's needed to pass any kind of
That's right.
legislation. So, I mean, it's still going to be tough for them to get because there's still some moderate Republicans that you're going to have to work with to
Right.
get something passed. But
Sure.
in the Senate, I think he's pretty much going to have his way on appointments because there's no moderates really on the Democratic side left, and there's very few on the Republican side. Mitt Romney's gone. You guys weren't a big fan of his, but there's just not much moderation in Congress right now,
No.
unfortunately.
I think he's going to get a lot of his appointments done. I think you're going to see Trump put in some more Supreme Court justices. I think that's fixing to happen. I think you're going to have a conservative court. This could be, I mean, for the next 50 years, Trump presidency, right now having two in this, he didn't get them consecutive, but two, the 4 years in between, I think you may see a
I'd
turn.
say Clarence Thomas and Alito will probably retire.
I think he'll replace those, and I hope to see we get conservative ones on the court. Some of them, they've been appointed by Republicans, and I'm not crazy about them. So
Yeah.
I'm not here to debate all that, but I'm not crazy about them. But definitely not crazy about the far left being on the court. And I'm glad to see some of those getting older and aging out.
There's talk. I even saw one guy mention yesterday on one of the Sunday shows that Biden should replace Sonia Sotomayor with Kamala Harris.
Oh, she's actually give a statement saying, "I'm not going anywhere." Did
She
you see that?
shouldn't. She should. I don't know.
They couldn't get a replacement.
I don't
They don't have
know.
enough time.
I don't
You don't
know
have enough time to
what
do
the
it.
hell the Democratic Party is about wanting to push people out. They pushed Biden out.
Yeah,
And
they
look
did.
how that went. Now they're wanting to push Sonia Sotomayor, 70 years old. I understand they're afraid she may die like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but I mean, my Lord, it's getting ridiculous at this point, some of the stuff they're floating out there.
Well, and I think a lot of people here in this community have felt pushed out by the Democrat Party. It may not have been this election cycle, but we used to be a blue state, and so
And
they felt pushed out.
it's tarnishing Democrats up and down the ballot. I've always said to people around here that I'm a Lawrence County Democrat. I'm one of the old schools that believe in, the value of work, rewarding people for who they are, not based on skin color and things like that. And we're going to have to get back to that because you have good people in office. You have people like Kylie Weathers locally. I mean, look at all the elected officials that we've had in the past that were Democrat. Chuck Kaiser, Teresa Duncan, just a house full of names that people know that are good people. And of course, some of them's retired now, but if you put a D beside your name in local office right now, it's like wearing the scarlet letter. In 2000, it was my previous election for the last one, I got 64%. And then I ran 2 years ago, I lost, I got 48%. So you can see the drop off. And I had people that told me, you're smart, you were a good commissioner, but I can't support somebody that's a Democrat. I even had people that have been lifelong friends that told me that. It's just a drag.
That is amazing that a lifelong friend would tell you that.
Oh, they did.
Wow.
And I didn't like it, but that's just the reality it is in these small communities right now. That's how toxic the Democratic Party is. And until we change that, I'm afraid we're going to be in big trouble, especially in these small rural communities.
Well, you and I have had several conversations, and I know that these are it's a highly debatable show that we've done. I mean, it can be a lot of contention with what we've done. I appreciate the fact you've come in and you've been respectable. I hope I've given you as much time as you've given me. I appreciate that
That's
on your
fine.
part. We don't agree on a lot of issues, but there's stuff that we do agree on, and I think a lot of people could take a look at our points of view. We're just examining it. The country cannot be divided. We don't need to let the media divide us. We don't need to let politics divide us. We need to come together. We're neighbors. We love the same community. We want good schools. We want good roads, and so it has to come out. We've got to work together in the state of Tennessee. Um, I want to say this. I came in and Trump won. And I started thinking about, okay, how am I going to address this when he comes in? I didn't want to come in here and gloat. There's a
Yeah.
part of me that did. Now,
I was fully expecting it.
I got a Trump flag in the car with Trump wearing glasses, and
Yeah.
I was going to bring it in here. But you know what? I was like, I didn't even really want to.
Yeah.
Really, what I wanted to do, and you and I have not talked. I sent you a text message. We text back and forth. It was, it was nothing
Yeah.
slanderous at all. Not even really joking around. Just, appreciate the conversation we've had. But what I want to offer, and here, well, we've been here for several weeks, and people, if you tuned in on this show, and maybe it's the first time you've seen it, we have had a lot of different talks, and tried to cover different topics every week.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the final one. We've come through this series we kind of put together. But what I want to extend to Democrats in this community is I want to say, if you feel like your party's left you, we were there. As Republicans, we were there.
Yeah.
Um, I want you to know that the Republican Party is not radical. We're not crazy. We're a friendly group of people that love this community. And, I just want to extend the invite. I think the Democrat Party has gone off the left side, unfortunately. I don't rejoice at that. That's something, I think some people really get excited about the Democrats going off the left side or pushing Biden out.
Yeah.
I don't like to see I don't like to see that, but I'd rather just get back and let's have an argument about where a city dump's going to go.
Right.
That's political.
Right.
Let's get an argument about a interstate and let's fight to the end of it. Then let's all go have lunch together.
Absolutely.
But I don't like to see us arguing over boys using girls' bathrooms. I don't like to see us arguing over the border. I don't like to see these issues. And what I hope that can come out of this is unity in our community, which we are a good community. But I want people to know that we're rational. We care. I truly care about my neighbors, and I think, and I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah.
I want people to know, hey, the Republican Party, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Anytime you have people in anything, it's not going to be perfect. You can nitpick it to death. You're not going to find, if you find the perfect church, don't go because you're going to ruin it. You're not going to find something that's perfect. But I want to extend that out and say, I don't want us to be divided. And if people in this community feel like the party has left them, and we can push to make the Republican Party better, that's what we want to do. And I just appreciate the fact that people tuned in and listen to this. We've got a lot of comments in the community. I appreciate you coming in. We didn't get paid to do this.
No.
This is volunteer. It was experiment
Yeah.
at best. Nobody else is doing it.
And we've talked about coming back after the first of the year, when there's some more news when Trump takes office, the appointments, we're going to give it a rest for the next month or so because the holidays are coming up.
Right? Yeah.
I think folks are wanting a
People are
little break right
politicked
now.
out. They're done.
And we can come back at the first of the year, talk about the news that has come up. And, if there's local news that has come up political wise or, just policy wise, like you're talking about, there's things that we can talk about. I'd much rather talk about local stuff that's affecting our everyday community here because that's where the rubber meets the road. So we'll see where it goes at the beginning of the year. But I've enjoyed it and I appreciate you. I did not know you before we started this. And, I guess I had a preconceived notion that you were a radical before starting this and getting to know you. But I think I can be a testament. The more you talk to somebody and listen to them, you get to know them a lot better. And I think I can say without a hesitation that you're a good person. And, even though we disagree on issues, we love our country, love our
Right.
community. And hopefully we can inspire people over the holidays to talk to each other a little more instead of talking at each other.
Yeah.
Don't get mad and walk away because, at the end of the day, it's not worth throwing away relationships,
Right.
friendships, and family over. But, I hope we've at least inspired that in some people.
I think we have, and I think that you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's the old saying, and it's even biblical: if you can't run your own house well, how are you going to run the house of God? I
Yeah.
mean, it was how are you going to take the castle if you can't run your own
Right.
community? So by your community coming together, and I believe Lawrenceburg, Lawrence County, southern Middle Tennessee. I think we're in the heart of Dixie. It's
Yeah.
great. I love living here. I love Tennessee. I jokingly say that I'm more Tennessee than Dolly Parton. I mean, I love this state. I've got
She's
deep
a tough act
roots.
to follow.
Yeah, she's Tennessee, but Davy Crockett, I'm right up there. I'm just like them. I got roots in this state. I love this community here, and having good conversations. I don't know where it could go, but it can only be good. It can
Yeah.
only be good for what we do. If we've offended people on this show, that was not the intention.
Yeah.
But I want to say you don't have the right to be unoffended.
Right.
That's not one of your rights.
Right.
You have the right to speak and to respond, and I think that's what we've done here on the show. I want to encourage our neighbors and our friends have an open conversation. Believe, and if you truly passionate believe that you have good ideas, you should want to be able to explain those ideas and present them. And I truly believe that.
Yeah.
I think that if we could come together, I think people would be a happier community, and it's
Yeah.
a very good place to live. But I don't want to see people angry and mad. And if someone's mad about this radio program, that's not the intent.
Yeah.
The intent was we had people contact the Republican Party asking what's the difference in Democrat and Republican. We've laid that out.
Yeah.
We have articulated that in this show.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah.
And whether the difference is, and at the end of the day, I think listening to each other, I think we could have a better community.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all the people that have listened to this. And
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had a good 6 or 7 weeks, and people are engaging with us, asking questions, and we appreciate everybody that's tuned in on both sides. And like I said, we're going to take a break here in the next month or so, and come back after the first of the year and see what happens. And I like I said, I appreciate WLX because you really don't have this in small communities where you're given airtime and
right.
like you said, we weren't paid anything. We volunteered this, but WLX is the real winner here by providing both sides
Right.
a kind of an avenue to educate the public. It's really a public service that we've
It's
done.
public service, freedom of speech. I want to encourage people that live in this community support this radio station.
Yep.
Support them, like them on Facebook. If you're in the community and you're on a business or whatever, advertise here. They're a
Sure.
great advertising network. They got a super superstation signal going out. You can hear them in all the surrounding counties,
Yep.
and they cover good local news. Where are you going to get Lawrence County news at? Where are you going to find out the information? They post a lot of bulletins for free for
They
nonprofits that
cover
I'm
local
involved of.
meetings, you know?
And so I want to encourage the people who live here, please support this radio station. We don't
Yep.
need to lose this radio station. What are we going to do when all we've got left is Facebook?
Yeah.
What are we going to do when all we've got left is just a mega media, small town media? They won't care about
Yeah.
our elections, and so support this radio
I
station.
think common ground you and I have, we both despise the mainstream media. You know, it may be for different reasons, but I think they're there for conflict, which
Yeah,
drives their ratings.
sure it does.
And like you said, with this radio station, they provide the news. They don't put their finger on the button one way or the other. They just provide you the news and you make the decision.
And they've not pushed you or me.
Oh, no.
They've not taken a political push on either side.
Nope.
They've said, "Hey, you guys go in." We've done this without a mediator.
Yeah.
We've not, and that was one of the things you and I talked about. It's like no mediator.
Yeah.
If we get in here and we are mad, then we're just going to have to throw some ice water on our face.
Talking to 9 o'clock if they allowed us, but
But no mediator.
yeah.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's respect for your fellow American. That's respect for freedom of speech. That's respect for your rights. And WLX, WDXC putting that out there.
Yep.
And not charging either party a dime. Said we want to do this. They made it a community service. This is an awesome country to live in.
Yep.
This is an awesome county to live in. And
Yeah.
WLX is just one of those things that makes it great to live here.
Yeah, I mean, as Thanksgiving comes up in the next few weeks, I hope everybody realizes how lucky we are in this country. You know, even though we are divided and we disagree on issues, I don't think anybody can question that we live in the greatest, the strongest, and the most unique country in the world. And I hope to God neither side ever takes that for granted, because if you look around the world right now, there's so much going on,
Right.
and people would die to be in our positions right
They
now.
would.
So
They would. I'd rather be in what's considered the worst place in America to be the best place
Any
somewhere
day,
else.
any
I
day.
love this country. Local advertisers, local businesses, WLX, WDXE's running holiday advertisement spots, and I think it's $100 to run one of
Yeah.
them. Call up here and just get an advertisement and wish somebody Merry Christmas. I mean,
Yeah.
say Merry Christmas. This is
Yeah.
what it is. Don't be afraid to say Merry Christmas and God bless America.
And happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans today,
Absolutely.
including my
Absolutely.
dad who served in Vietnam from 66 to 70.
You served your country. God bless you. Thank you. And thank you to your families for making that sacrifice as well. 'Cause the families
Absolutely.
sacrifice just like they do. Chris, I want to give you a handshake.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I appreciate you. Appreciate your honesty. Appreciate you coming in every week, dedicating your time. It's been a labor. This has not been easy for either one of us. And so it's been a labor that we've done. I've enjoyed it, and I've learned from it.
Yep.
And I feel like it sharpens me up to
Yeah.
come in here and get a different conflict to get that different opinion, sharpens you on what you believe.
Absolutely. Same here. And I want to wish you and your family and everybody out there that's listening a happy Thanksgiving, a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And like I said, we're going to let you know when we come back after the first of the year, and make sure you guys tune in then.
God bless. God bless everyone.
Take care.